Hi there. Today I will speak in English and I will read a text that I've translated in English. Of course, thanks to Google Translated, I thank warmly. The fact is that in these last months I've been writing some texts of political nature, and I think that some of them could prove of some interest for people who actually do not understand Italian. So that's why I'm reading this text. Here it goes. Italy is a democratic republic founded on labor. Sovereignty belongs to the people, who exercise it in the forms and within the limits of the Constitution. Thus recites the first article of the Italian Constitution. I would like to focus exclusively on the passage founded on labor. I imagine there are so many possible interpretations of it. Some could support an interpretation according to which the state must act so that everyone can find a job and work, because labor is the wealth of the country and the dignity of the individual. Another possible interpretation, not very different, is that the Italian Republic realizes itself thanks to the labor of its citizens. However, I wonder, what is labor or work? Because if it is only the paid one or the one that entails money return, then it means that many citizens are excluded from giving a contribution and a foundation to their country. Or maybe labor is an activity in general. In the cultural climate of the years 1946 and 1948, when the Italian Constitution was written, labor was seen just like it is implicitly intended today. That is, the work and professional activity that involves a pecuniary compensation, whether it be employee or self-employed. It seems that Palmiro Togliatti, the leader of the Communist Party, wanted to insert Italy is a democratic republic of workers, confirming that the prevailing idea of work was that directly functional to the economy. And yet, to say that the Italian Republic is founded on labor is extremely reductive in my opinion, because there are so many other things that support and make a country grow, both spiritually and materially, activities that have nothing to do with traditionally intended work, but are not less important. We could mention the many hours that, for example, parents, grandparents, or uncles dedicates to their children, grandchildren, and nephews to help them grow, or the care that people provide to their own parents in need. The topic of the gratuitous personal care could therefore be deepened, because it is in fact a pillar of society. Among other activities that are free and at the same time found our republic, there is, for example, volunteering, which is a gratuitous activity towards those who need help at most or are weaker. And I remind that volunteering is only one of the possible manifestations of solidarity amongst strangers, a fact that makes a country stronger and more cohesive, and therefore more livable. Or again, we could cite the gratuitousness of a good part of political activism, which is the political foundation of our democracy. But in this speech, I would like to concentrate only on how much the use of one's free time for personal passions, for the exercise of an art or for study, can be itself a formidable contribution to the progress of a nation. I take the example of the first two people that come to my mind. They are not Italians, but I'm sure that even among our compatriots I could find many, searching with a little bit of patience. The first example is Albert Einstein. Albert Einstein was working in a patent office in Switzerland when, in 1905, his Annus Mirabilis published 4 articles that revolutionized science forever. 4 articles in 4 different fields, one of which, on the discovering the law of the photoelectric effect, earned him the Nobel Prize for Physics in 1921. Now, it was only passion that moved Albert Einstein. He used his free time to study and write about physics. In fact, that was not his job, the job for which he was paid, and yet it could be difficult to argue that this hobby of his has not contributed enormously to the progress of science and therefore of humanity. Another example is Franz Kafka, one of the most important and influential literary figures of the 20th century, a writer so iconic that in many languages there is an adjective to indicate characters or situations that recall those that Kafka has invented in his works. Yet it is useful to remember that for most of his adult life he has done office work in insurance companies. He was used to complain about the too many working hours that didn't allow him to write, and he also complained about how boring, demeaning and frustrating that job was. Even in this case, I believe there is no doubt that Kafka left a much deeper mark with his artistic activity than he did when he worked in the office. Also in this case, it was the passion for writing, a passion for which he was willing to sacrifice his little free time to consecrate him as an eminent and illustrious figure of his time. And I wonder if the same thing does apply to each of us. With this, I do not want to say that work will inevitably lead us not to achieve anything remarkable. On the contrary, I am convinced that work can be an instrument for exalting oneself and the others. But work, it is not a necessary condition for dignity, nor it is a sufficient one. It is only a possible condition for acquiring dignity. The same is true for passions. Who has a passion to which he is willing to dedicate time and energy, it is not automatic that he will be realized thanks to his passion or that will progress society. There will be always those who decide not to do nothing in their free time, and that's perfectly okay. It's right. It is a legitimate choice. However, the positive contribution that comes from passions is an eventuality to be taken in account, to be protected and guaranteed to the individual. A community that does not recognize the value of the activities that take place for a reason other than economic compensation is a society that neglects an essential contribution to its endurance and its progress. In other words, I believe that the Constitution should be corrected in the first article. In my opinion, it should recite, Italy is a democratic republic, founded on freedom, solidarity, labor, and any other activity that contributes to its material and spiritual progress. What could be the effects of the new formulation of the Article 1 of the Italian Constitution? It would impose, perhaps, on Parliament legislative work and on politics in general, greater sensitivity on the subjects of individual freedoms and the right to free time, as a condition that favors the non-profit exercise of the individual's physical and intellectual capacities, which is in its turn a formidable source of improvement of the political, economical, cultural, artistic, and also of the scientific and technological field. Okay, thank you so much, and excuse me for the many mistakes I made, I'm sure. My pronunciation was, of course, not perfect. Thank you very much, and see you next time.